Good morning, everybody. It is Thursday, a Thursday in June. It's beautiful out there in Minnesota. We've got these annual sponsors and some great material for you today. We may be coming to the end of the Zoom, the standard Zoom member meeting era. So who knows? This may be one of your last chances to do exactly this with ESABA on a Thursday morning. We'll see. Here, I want to just say thank you to our annual sponsors, Ideal Printers, DB Creative, Harrington Langer and Associates, State Farm, and the Office of Juan Cervantes over on Ruth Street, the Sane Foundation, M Health Fairview, St. Paul Federal Credit Union, the St. Paul Port Authority, Highway Credit Union, Sunrise Banks, Metropolitan State, Mueller Memorial, our newest annual sponsor, Walters Recycling and Refuse, and Health Partners. Thank you so much for being annual sponsors. We've got a great show today. We are talking about, we're talking with Krystal Hollins at 180 Degrees about how we can become more perceptive about what we're seeing in community, especially as it relates to sex trafficking and what we can do about it as community members. So want to do an opportunity for us to do some introductions, and then I'll turn things over to Krystal. So here we go. Turn on your camera if you're live. Most of us have our cameras on. If you are involved with a small business on the east side or with a business on the east side of any kind, any size, give us a wave. See who we have from businesses today. We've got William Schultz from Vivid Concepts. We've got Terry Furlong from Premier Bank. Terry, are you involved with other businesses as well?
I am not. I used to own Furlong's Liquor.
That's right.
33
That's right,
years.
many years. Many years, I understand it, Furlong's Liquor.
Yeah.
It's hard to get that hat off once you put on that.
It is.
Owners. Terrific. Welcome to the show. If you are a part of an Eastside nonprofit, give us a wave. So there we've got Kayla from Eastside Elders and Rebecca Nelson from Eastside Elders, Krystal from 180 Degrees, Jean from Cornerstone Montessori, Shatika from Family Values for Life, and Andrea from Family Values for Life, and ESABA is a nonprofit too. We've got Senior Commander Kurt Hallstrom, who I mentioned earlier, from the St. Paul Police Department. So from the city, thank you so much, and the police, thank you so much for being here, Senior Commander. And Elizabeth Lynn, Elizabeth, if you want to just chime in for a minute, tell us who you're from or who you're with.
Hi, I'm at a coffee shop right now, so I turned off everything. I'm with the Sane Foundation, and I'm doing a year with AmeriCorps.
Fantastic. Welcome to the program. That's so great. Are you on the east side somewhere? That does not look like a coffee shop I know.
Yeah, we're in a couple weeks, we're going to go back working full time. Right now, we're still hybrid. So I'm in Minneapolis.
Okay, cool. Coming to us from the West Coast, Minneapolis. That's great. Okay, glad to have you. Glad to have you with us. And
I just want to mention, Harris, if you don't mind, I'll just mention that also the mayor of North St. Paul.
Oh, that's right, Terry. Terry wears lots of hats. Mayor of North St. Paul, really glad to have you, Terry. That's public service and a VIP as well. The North St. Paul's not really on the east side, but it's really close. I mean, you're kind of the mayor of the north side of the east side, maybe. I don't know.
Right there, you go.
That's terrific. Thanks for mentioning that, Terry. Rebecca Nelson also coming with us from District 4 Community Council. Rebecca, are you the new president of D4?
Yeah, I have been for a couple months. So I'm the president of the District 4 Community Council and the president of the District 5 Community Council, and I'm stepping in a little bit, taking over some ED roles in District 4 as we're interim between Lissa and our new one. So it's
Fantastic.
been interesting.
Yeah, no doubt. Complicated, and there, like I said, many hats. But I wanted, in just brief, have you hired a new ED at D4? Do we?
We have a contract out. She's looking at it, and it's like this close.
Okay.
This close to being signed.
Okay, I knew you were in the middle of a process. All right, we may have an introduction at sometime, hopefully this summer. I hope that'd be
definitely, great. Definitely.
Terrific. Okay, we've got also some other folks just joining in. Jorge Sampersla from the BP Sunray. Hey, Jorge, good to see you. We've done, Jorge's also a board member. Shatika's a board member for ESABA, and so is William. So there we go. We've done introductions. Okay, yep. Always fun to wave. Okay, Let's go ahead and introduce Krystal Hollins from 180 Degrees. And Krystal, I'll work on some screen sharing here and giving you control. Go ahead and, in the chat today, go ahead and feel free to pop your name and a little bit more about your organization if you want, or other hats that you wear that we didn't get to acknowledge. We are doing a lot on the East Side, and that's always fun to get some more information on people in the chat as we go through these meetings. Krystal, go ahead, if you'll do an introduction. I'll also just say that Krystal comes to us as a longtime member of 180 Degrees. We sometimes have worked with other staff members, but Krystal got introduced to me through Shatika Flowers and Family Values for Life. So the good work that East Side nonprofits are doing and learning from each other is some of how we continue to expand our network and expand our knowledge and figure out what we know. So Krystal and I met and talked, and I'm so excited to have her tell us a little bit more about her program and what they do at 180 for this topic. So Krystal, take it away.
Good morning, everyone. I am going to work on getting my screen shared, and because of wanting to make sure I get this right, I have 3 screens in front of me, and you all are projected here so I can see you, but my camera is there. So yeah, as Paris said, thanks Paris, I am the senior manager here at Brittany's Place with 180 Degrees. I have been with them a little bit less than a year, so I started back in November. Give me a second here, I'm gonna share my screen. And this morning, what I'm gonna just give you all a very brief overview of 180, and then we'll talk a little bit about trafficking, what some of the signs are, victimization, and buyers. Not a whole lot of information, but just enough. And feel free at the end, we'll have time to take some questions, okay? So I am just gonna ask real quick, can everyone see the screen and hear me reasonably?
Yes.
All right, so I got a couple of thumbs up. So yeah, 180 Degrees have been around for maybe just over about 60 years. It started with the development and the opening of Clifton Place, which is a halfway house in Minneapolis. And then afterwards, it started to branch out to work with other community members who had been impacted by the justice system, homeless, who were in poverty, things of that nature. So 180 Degrees have a few simple rules that we work by in our organization, which you see here posted up on the screen. This is how we take our approach to the services and the programs that we provide, regardless of if there are youth focused, adult focused, justice impact, or if they are towards foster care and families. So our mission here at 180 Degrees is to create a safe space and services that honor each individual's healing journey. And we have this vision of every person can have an experience for hope for their future and to reach their full potential. So that is just a little bit about how we approach the work here at 180 Degrees. So the program, and 180 Degrees has 10 programs. 4 of them are youth serving housing programs. But the one that I'm going to talk specifically about is Brittany's Place. Brittany's Place, there we go. Brittany's Place is a safe and sound shelter for girls, and we're over here on the east side of St. Paul. We're right, our administrative building is on the corner of East 7th Street and Johnson Parkway, and the shelter is right behind it. So if you've ever gone down 7th Street and you see that nice building with the mosaics, that is our shelter. Brittany's Place was founded back in 2015, and it's Minnesota's largest shelter for sexually exploited youth, so SEY, and also now currently for runaway and homeless youth, or RHY. So we're accessible, we're open every day, 365 days of the year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Our shelter is staffed by awake staff throughout all of those times. So we work with girls females and female identifiers between the ages of 10 to 19 years of age. So the 18 and 19-year-olds, we require that they be in school or working. And for our 19-year-olds, we require that they be in school and working. And that is just so that we can be able to balance out the requirements we have from our governing statute of 2960 when we're working with 19-year-olds. So they come to us, and they come to us with a lot of different types of experiences that they have. Like I was saying, they can come in without a need for referral, so they can do a lot of self-referrals. They're able to find out about us majority of the time when they come in without without being connected to anyone in the county. They find out about us by word of mouth. Also through the app that's called YSN, which is the Youth Servicing Network. So a lot of the times they show the youth who come to us self-referral, they will find out about us there. So at our location, the girls have the opportunity to participate in a variety of different programmings that we offer to them. So we offer mental health services. We have a partnership with a mental health provider by the name of Natalis. They provide on-site mental health services for 8 hours a week, once on a Monday and then on a Thursday. They also participate in our case consultation. So once a week, today after I'm done, we'll be sitting down and reviewing all of the cases that we have. We have an on-site classroom that is staffed by a St. Paul Public School special ed teacher. She is licensed to work with girls at various educational levels and also within our age range of 10 to 19. She is also able to work with girls or females, I'm sorry, I gotta stop saying girls, females and female identifiers who are in search of getting their GED. We also have a contract with Midwest Children Resource Center that is housed out of the Children's Hospital to provide our on-site medical services through a nurse practitioner who also comes to the location twice a week. So the girls our residents are able to get medical services through our nurse practitioner who comes in, and that runs a wide range of things that the residents may need. So one of the other good things is our medical contact that we have. If there's something that's not able to be done on site, she guides us through how to get in contact with the previous service provider, get those things set up, work in harmony along with their social worker if they have one, to get those things done. If not, the girls are able to be the residents, because the residents are able to be seen at Children's Hospital for ongoing medical services, emergency services, until we're able to establish for them a main provider within the area. Our shelter takes the approach of a trauma-informed care. So what that means is we use different knowledge bases, different methods, different tips and techniques in order to provide the residents with the services they need, taking in and honoring the experiences they have, the trauma that they come to us with, without loading them up with consequences because of those things. There are consequences, for certain behaviors, natural and logical. However, with the trauma-informed care, we understand that these residents come to us with certain backgrounds and experiences that might show up and show out in a certain way, and we can't always hold them accountable for those things, but we have to find a roundabout way to be harm reductive. And that is another one of the services that we have embedded into our programming, is a harm reductive approach, which allows us to be able to let certain things happen because there are a need and there is experiences that have gotten the girls to a place where these things need to happen, but we may do it in a way that reduces the harm. For example, a girl who has a chemical addiction, she may be wanting or having cravings for a substance, but we're not going to give her the substance, but we will guide her to and through other things that could help wean her off her substance abuse, which we'll do in connection and in tandem with our medical provider and our mental health provider. So one of the other services that we offer is a chemical programming, and we do that in tandem with our mental health provider, who offers us and who does have a provider that is skilled in chemical addiction. So one of the days when she comes on site, she provides the chemical health and chemical education training to our girls. some of the basic things that we do is we provide them with their basic needs. Brittany's Place has the fortune of being, one of those parts where people really want to give and donate. So we receive a lot of donations that allows us to provide for the girls. So when a resident comes to Brittany's Place, we let them know that they don't need any money because of all the things that we'll provide for them from top to bottom, front to back. So they have that. We also make sure that the services that they get are culturally sensitive. We work with and we're partnering with different community members, agencies, and organizations that reflect the cultural background that our residents come from. Excuse me, I'm really trying to get out of referring to the residents as girls, because not all of them are all born girls when they come to us. So I'm trying to, in the process of switching my thought with that. So we are working with different providers, organizations, and agencies who reflect the cultural background that the residents come to us with. And it's things that is as simple as addressing the needs of their hair. So we have a partnership and a volunteer who provides services for hair care for our girls on site. One of the other things that the girls at Brittany's Place have but the services that we provide to the residents is every day throughout the week, Sunday to Saturday, they are given group sessions where we explore a variety of topics. Throughout the week, 3 of those topics are going to be identified by the residents, and the other 4 are going to be those that are identified by programming. And we just look at several different things that are going to be, from the program standpoint, several different things that we find specific and necessary to provide them with extra knowledge on internet usage, healthy relationships, eating habits. They're going to be starting a manner and etiquette course that will be provided to them. So just some different things to give those independent skills, living skills that they need, and also just to provide them with some experiences that they may have or could have had if they were at home, but now that they're not and they're with us, to get the opportunity to do. Brittany's Place is able to do all of these things because, as you see here, it's a safe and sound shelter for girls. And the reason why that is because Brittany's Place is a part of the Safe Harbor initiative. So Safe Harbor is a state initiative that identifies and understands that when you have victims, and that's how they're identified, when you have victims who go or who are a part of exploitation and trafficking, they should not be criminalized for them. So it increases that awareness, as it says, understands that commercial sexual trafficking and exploitations of youth is not something that they choose on their own. And it's a law that is going to protect them from the arrest and the prosecution for prostitution. It gives the definition for what a sexually exploited youth is under the Minnesota statute, and also allows that youth to be connected to child protection services and also get responses from those different agencies within the state. Safe Harbor provides funding, and it provides protocols and trainings for those organizations and agencies that are identified as a Safe Harbor shelter. One of the other things that being a Safe Harbor shelter is really good for is because it allows us to be able to accept residents, those female identifiers, without having to put them through a whole lot of hoops and obstacles when they come in. So that considers us a Safe Harbor program is considered a no wrong door program. One of the good things about the program at Brittany's Place is because we have in-house a Safe Harbor regional navigator. And as you can see on your screen, there are several regional navigators throughout the state. And 180 was awarded the funding and for the navigator to be housed out of 180 degrees and connected to Brittany's Place. So what this means is that our navigator provides services and provide resources to anyone who gets in contact with her. Not only does she doesn't only drive that those individuals to Brittany's Place, but she drives them to whomever and wherever the other safe harbor providers are in the East Metro. She works along with those other safe harbor navigators throughout the state, connecting different programming. If one navigator isn't able to find placement for a resident here in this particular region, they'll work together to find them placement in another region, which is important because we have the pipeline that's happening in northern Minnesota, which Brittany's Place is partnering with the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension to be a shelter for that exploitation and trafficking that has been going on in northern Minnesota, which has been a big part of the navigator role. Our regional navigator here and the Northeast Regional Navigator and the Northwest Regional Navigators have been working in tandem to do what we call recovery and rescues in the pipeline area, and have been making sure that those victims and those youth get into the locations that is going to be best suited for them. The regional navigator has a 24-hour crisis line. She is a part of taking those referrals. Her referrals have a larger span. She works with referrals for youth between the age of 10 to 24 years of age. And not only are those youth female or female identifiers, but they could be male or male identifiers also. She provides crisis and outreach, intervention supports for those youth, connection to shelters, excuse me, and emergency shelter, not only Brittany's Place. So the reason why we're all here is to talk a little bit more about what the traffickers look like, and also what trafficking is, or what exploitation looks like. So when we think about traffickers, we know that a trafficker can be just about anyone. And traffickers are not necessarily just folks who are estranged to a youth. Traffickers can and have been family members. They have been parents, grandparents, they have been boyfriends, girlfriends. They have been people that the youth are very connected to and know on a very intimate basis. One of the other things, as is mentioned here, some of the action happens and takes place in places where we talk about the brothels, and you have massage parlors, and you have different landlords of all types. Anyone can be a trafficker. And we see here that we have this word pimp that is in quotations. Here in the world of exploitation, we're moving a little away from that, not wanting to glorify it. And we're starting, and they're being referred to as traffickers, because that's exactly what they're doing. They're trafficking young folks in and out of sexual commercial work. So, and another thing to be aware of is that trafficking is something that happens on a very small scale to a very large scale. It happens within just a home. It can happen nationwide, and it can happen international. And this is some of the things, this has happened here in the state of Minnesota. It happens on a regular basis. When we have large events that come into different areas, especially here in Minnesota. When we had the Super Bowl that came, one of the things that came upon the radar and what the industry of youth trafficking, sexual exploitation took into notice and was preparing for was the Super Bowl and the increase of the trafficking that was going to happen there. There was an uptick in that, and it did run the full gamut of the state and also outside of the state into some of our neighboring areas. So trafficking and traffickers is not something that, you know, you can have a one size fit all for it, but it can happen, and it can be anyone, and it can happen anywhere and at any time. Other information that's going to be necessary if you want to do, or if you want to think about a type, or if you want to get down to the nitty gritty of it, predominantly those who are buyers of exploited youth are going to be middle-aged, white, married men, and they're going to come from anywhere. And as you see here, they really like to exploit, or they seek out youth, younger victims, and some have a very specific desire only for young minors. They will travel very far to purchase their sex, to purchase a youth. And a lot of times we find that they do these things when they're on work trips. So when you have large conventions come into town, when you have large events come into town, as it says here, goes on talking about bachelor parties, fishing and hunting trips, those are some of the things where you can expect that if those things are happening, that there is some connection, or at some point there could be some purchase of sex and from exploited youth. Well, and one of the other things to keep in mind is that we talk a lot about female and female identifiers being exploited. However, as we see here, we could have males and we could have boys and men who are part of that exploitation. It is not something that is secluded to females and female identifiers. However, unfortunately, in our society, men and boys are treated differently in this realm, and they are, they're not always encouraged to talk about those types of things. But we do know in the SEY and RHY world that this is happening to men and boys also. And the state of Minnesota and Safe Harbor is continuously working to increase the knowledge and also to increase the awareness of trafficking happening to them. So how does trafficking start to happen? We know one of the things is that there is usually going to be an unmet core need that happens. You're going to have someone who, within different realms and in different gamuts, they're going to have basic needs that's not met, home life that's not met, interpersonal and intrapersonal needs that's not met. There's going to be some kind of need that is left unmet that exposes them and leaves them vulnerable. They'll be unprotected. So some of the other things that falls under this vulnerability, we'll talk more about in the next slide, but things of being impoverished, of being of a certain demographic, living in a certain location, sometimes just being, in this particular instance, just being born female or identifying as females. So when these things happen, then we have those traffickers who come along and they provide these youth, or they provide the victims with these false promises. You know, they provide them with love, they provide them with material things, take them on trips, allow them to meet other people. They may say that they'll protect them from the things that they're vulnerable to, just to get them into that lane of trafficking. And that trafficker will watch. They will seek out, they will have other victims go in search of new, younger, fresh victims to exploit and traffic so that they can start getting them into the life. And this just leads them to trafficking and exploitation. Sometimes it can become a rotating circle for them, where you will have a victim enter into exploitation and trafficking, and then that victim can also become a trafficker in and of themselves by going and finding new, younger victims to enter into the work. So when we think about who these victims of the sex trafficking are, we have to remember that there is no particular makeup for them. They can be of any age, any gender, any race, any ethnicity, as we see here. However, there are certain factors that will put some at more of a risk for being trafficked than others. And as you can see here, it gives us a list of different things. So generally, you'll see, as we have here on this list, you know, these are going to be more of the marginalized populations, those who are identified in these different areas. This does not mean that in suburban America, or in two-parent households, or with family members who are educated, that these things can't happen, because it does. We have had residents here at Brittany's place, when you look at them, they are not look at them, read their information, get to know their background, they're not the stereotypical victim as we have one here right now, as a matter of fact, if I think about it. You know, she's not the stereotypical victim. That just lets us know that there is no particular, you know, category to pull them from to say that this is who they would be. But as I said, you know, there are more risks that put a person at becoming trafficked, because again, going back to the previous slide, they have those core needs that are unmet and they're left to be vulnerable. And we see here things such as mental health issues, having physical or cognitive development disabilities, being of a certain race. Unfortunately, Black, Indigenous, Latinx, when we have residents, youth of color, BIPOC who come to us, within Brittany's place, 92% of the residents, I got that wrong, 96% of the residents that we've served within the last 6 months have been residents of BIPOC. So it just goes to show you that there's a larger number of them who are in this victimization, who are being trafficked and exploited. But again, sexual orientation does not leave anyone out. Gay, bisexual, straight, transgender, all of those can also become victims of trafficking. Whether someone is undocumented, immigration status also makes them a victim of trafficking, runaways, and those who experience poverty. Back in 2019, oh my goodness, I'm drawing a blank. There was a study done here in the state of Minnesota with high school and students. And of the study that was done, 98% of them had identified risk factors that put them, 88% of them had identified risk factors that put them in the lane of becoming exploited and trafficked. And that just, again, just gives you some information to let you know that there isn't any particular way that they're going to look, any particular thing that they're going to have or not have that will increase the likelihood of them becoming or going into trafficking. So with that being said, what are some of the signs of being trafficked? So again, this is going to be some of the things that are more known within the safe harbor world, within SEY and RHY, some of the things that come to the top a little bit more when we think about those risk factors, and some of those signs that happen. These are intermingled between if they're for those who are more in the home looking, and then from a public view. So one of the things that you want to be aware of is a change in friends. So if your youth have all of a sudden gone from having one particular type of friends to another particular type of friends, and they're not telling you about their friends, they have changes in their demeanor and their behaviors, they are, staying out, having different time, coming in and out, and all of it is connected to their friends, that could be a sign. One of the other things that we notice a lot is a change in material things without explanation. So if you have a youth who before did not have certain things, and now all of a sudden they've got the newest iPhone, they might be wearing a Fendi belt, have new jeans, not to say they can't have it, but it happens overnight. Or it's just there's no explanation where the things come from. They won't let you know how they came across it. They're not clear about how they got the money for it. That could be a sign. Youth who are just increasingly secretive is a sign. When there's an increase of the use of the internet, now since we have so much has switched over to the internet, a lot of the trafficking and exploitation that happens of youth is going to be on the internet. There is Backpage that's online, there is Fans Only that's online, there is My Fans that's online, Snapchat, which they use, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of these different platforms are being used to traffic and to exploit youth. So a lot of times you will find youth are using this to connect to buyers, using it to connect to their traffickers. One of the other signs, and this is for more in the public, when you see a visibly younger, and I'm gonna, refer to as female and old and men in this instance, when you see a visibly younger female with an older man, and you just know something about that is not right. Your gut is 99% of the time gonna be correct. Something to keep in contact with, connect with that is if this youth is not making eye contact with you. So in the world of exploitation and trafficking, when you have a victim who is with a trafficker, one of the ways that the victim will choose a different trafficker is by making eye contact with the next trafficker. So to avoid that from happening, when a victim is with her trafficker, she is not allowed and she will not make eye contact with another male, I should say. So, and you'll see this a lot, it has been seen a lot when victims and traffickers are in hotel settings and they're getting registered in, you know, there's been video surveillance where the victim does not make eye contact with the other males involved. So some other signs is when you have victims who are inappropriately dressed. So it's the dead of winter out, but she or he is wearing really short shorts, or they have on a crop top, you know, and some boots and boots. This is just completely inappropriate. But however, it is a sign and a show that they are in business. One of the other signs is having multiple phones. Bad enough we have youth who are always on their phones all the time. It is for us a luxury, but a necessity for them. A youth that has multiple phones, especially if that phone has no explanation of where it comes from or who is paying the bill, if that youth is not giving that information, that is a sign of being trafficked. That is going to be how the buyer and the trafficker is in contact with that youth. That is provided to the youth so that the family does not, or those who are concerned or around, does not have to question about the constant calls on the other phone or the comings and goings, and that victim is able to keep the trafficking and buying separate from the personal phone that they have. So something else to be aware of, if you consistently see a youth being picked up and dropped off at odd times of the day, but in the same location, this is generally going to be that victim's work spot, or what they refer to as their office. So that is where the buyers and the traffickers know to go and get the victim or return the victim back once the purchase has been made and the services have been delivered. Something else is when you have a youth especially a youth who is consistently hanging out in high traffic public areas. And you know, this is gonna be maybe like a coffee shop around the transit station, or a grocery store, close to but not going to a school, in an area where there's going to be a lot of foot traffic, where that youth can be visibly seen by potential buyers, but also that youth can be visibly observed by the trafficker. That is a sign that lets you know that this youth is possibly being trafficked and exploited by someone. Like I said, it says at the beginning of this, there's a lot that you can, a lot of different things to be aware of because of how the shift is happening. It's going more from being visible out in the open and public to transitioning over into the internet and virtual world. But those things are, both of these signs and these situations are happening in tandem. So when we think about those victims and we think about the population of those victims, one of the things that I would like you all to think about as you continue to go about, with this information about trafficking and victim and exploitation, we know that there is an implicit bias for victims. We have, as you see here, what we consider the good victim versus what we consider the bad victim. And unfortunately, in our society, that good victim is going to be more based on race. That good victim is going to be white, going to be female, vulnerable, and very young. And in the world of exploitation and trafficking, when those victims come across or cross over with the justice system, they have a 82% chance of being released and excused. I can't think of the other word, being released or excused from the reason that they're involved in the injustice system. Whereas versus if it was a person of color, their criminalization of their being a victim increases. So when we think about, the bias of these victims, it really does go hand in hand with the social umbrella that we're living under. Those who are people of color, who are of a particular sexual orientation, of a particular documentation, and especially when it comes to males, because as we see here, males, they say it can't really be trafficked, which is an untruth. Those are going to be the ones who are penalized the heaviest, who are not protected, and they will become criminalized for being victims. So some of the things that people usually wonder about is, if someone becomes a victim of trafficking, why isn't it that they just don't leave? Well, when we think about it, leaving a situation like that is really hard, because it's not just a physical thing that they're involved in, it's a mental and a psychological thing that they're involved in also. So there's fears that they have, whether it's actually being threatened by the person, by their trafficker, being made an example of, or even, as it says here, that threat of prosecution or deportation. And here where it talks about being blackmailed, just two weeks ago, here at Brittany's place, we had a youth that ran. She ran away from us and she went to her previous traffickers because she was being blackmailed. They were threatening to pull her younger sister into the life if she hadn't come and serviced some buyers. So, we went through the whole ordeal of, dealing with the powers that be and having things in place to deal with that. But that is an actual fear. That is a real situation that happens. One of the reasons why when a victim is a victim, they don't leave. The other reason is, that vulnerability that they came into it. If this trafficker has balanced out their vulnerability with the false promises that they're given, then that victim is going to lean more on the falsehoods than the possibility of the unknown if they leave. And again, like I said, those psychological fears, I've heard residents say this when they've come to Brittany's place, I decided to do this. I'm not, it's not illegal because I agreed to do it. And then in some instances, because of the glorification of trafficking and commercialization of sexual exploitation and trafficking online, it's normal to some people. They just normalize it, and that becomes their defense mechanism. So that is a lot.
Thank you. Yes.
A lot for me to put on you all, but I just wanted to tell you all, thank you for allowing me to share this information with you, and I went way over my time. I am sorry.
No problem. So, Krystal, if you'll just, thank you so much. And if you'll stop sharing screen, we'll also do some questions. I wanted to follow up and just ask as a starter question, if someone were to see and recognize that something odd was going on, what are the actions that a citizen person might take? I also think that there could be some risk to the young person if you are outing them in that kind of situation too. Hey, I see this doesn't look quite right. Do you need some help? I'm just curious if you've got suggestions for ways that as we become more aware things are going on around us, how we respond.
So first, I just want to say I'm having a hard time stopping my share. Oh, stop share. There we go. But to answer your question, one of the things that I would suggest is if you see that, call the non-emergency number and get in contact with the police department and be very specific about what it is you have observed. Let them know that you have concerns about the health and well-being of this particular youth. Be descriptive and factual of what it is that you have observed. And also one of the things that you can do or ask for that I don't have to provide for you, unfortunately, I'm sorry. But at the BCA, they have a exploitation and trafficking task force team. That information can also go to them. I will remember to share that with Paris so he can give you that information. And they have a huge caseload of traffickers, and there's a high probability that the person you are observing, the trafficker and the youth, they may already know about them.
Okay, so the non-emergency number,
Uh-huh.
and then a BCA resource that we can begin to learn.
Yep, I'll get the BCA
Okay.
resource to you now.
Are there, so you also mentioned a couple of acronyms, and I think I caught one of them, SEY is sexually exploited youth. You also said
Yep.
RHY?
RHY is runaway homeless youth.
Got it.
Runaway and homeless youth, Wilder, that's who did the research in 2019. Right. So in that Wilder research, it was shown that a youth who is out of their home, whether they're runaways or homeless, if they are away from their home, within the first 24 hours, they are approached about exploitation and trafficking.
Wow.
So
and was that,
within the first 24 hours.
Wow, Krystal. Was that where the 88% identified risk factors for trafficking came from in runaway and homeless youth?
2019 student study through Wouters.
Okay, and that makes sense. It makes me wow, it makes me really want to ask too, and then I want to open it up for other questions, of course. If anyone has questions, you can pop them in the chat or just, wave, gesticulate wildly, as we sometimes say on this call. Krystal, I am curious if there are protective factors that we think about in this work too. When you mentioned youth becoming more secretive, like I have a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old, like they're becoming more secretive all the time. Some of the things that are hard about this is that what you're seeing are exaggerated adolescent behavior, going on.
Right.
And yeah, go ahead.
Right. So that is kind of the tricky, sticky part, because a lot of the things that we show and we see as signs and as risk, as Paris say, are some of the things that those everyday teenagers just do. No, you can't see what's on my screen. I don't want to tell you who all my friends are. Okay. But, making sure you have an open conversation with them about why it is. Not wanting to scare them off, but just letting them know, out in the world, there are those who may pose themselves as someone who is here in your best interest, but mom, dad, neighbor, whomever knows that there is a possibility that these someones could really be out to hurt you. I don't need to know all the gritty details about what's going on with your friends, but when you leave, I do need to know when you're coming back and who it is you're going to be with. One of the other things is just have an open conversation with youth about trafficking and exploitation and what those things are and how they could look. Also, understanding or letting your youth in your life know that, again, this is just for your protection, so that you can be aware and have these tools when you're not with these people who are here to protect you, when you're not with these people who are here to care for you, you can know what to look out for. Did I answer that question?
You did. I see one question in the chat, and then if other folks have questions, please let us know. Andrea asks, how do you report a trafficker if you see them or are approached?
If you are approached?
Andrea, do you want to clarify? We also think about, I'm a little confused about, just in our conversation, about what behavior you see that is trafficking behavior and what behavior that you see as buying behavior. Andrea, Are you thinking about a buyer maybe versus a trafficker, or sorting that out? Oh, and there's
yeah, more of a trafficker. Or if you're approached by someone, like if they say something that's kind of triggers, like what did they say? And then if you're just like, no, when you walk away, like how do you report that, hey, I was just approached for sex, or I was just approached to do this, or things like that. So how would you know, and how do you report it?
So traffickers are very sly, okay? They have a ring of customers that they work within, and when they are getting new customers, the customers will seek them out. And again, going to some of those ways that that they're slowly moving away from, because I don't know if you all are familiar with, but there used to be Backpage, which was a trafficking and exploitation porn magazine. There was Page 6, which was a page in some solicitous magazines that was used to purchase and buy sex. So that is one way. If you have a trafficker who outright comes up to you and say a thing like that, I would first protect yourself, and then secondly, make a report to the local authorities to let them know. Again, making sure you can get as much information from them, not directly asking questions, because you don't want to tip them off, and also you don't want to put yourself in any harm. But the day and time, the approximate height, if you can remember any identifying marks of that person, so that you can report that information into the local authorities. And I think the other question was about a buyer. So if you do same thing, you want to make sure you protect yourself first. There are some trainings that happen, and I will get information to you, Paris, but there are some trainings that happen that allow community members to be able to have some steps and processes on what they do if they are part of a situation where buying happened. So that would be, how do you assist the victim in getting away? What do you need in order to stop a buy if you are in that position? But to answer the question, again, you want to make sure you protect yourself. You want to make sure you gather as much identifying information about that buyer. If they are, you want to know how it is that they're transporting or moving around. If you're able to get a license plate, you can go ahead on and do that and immediately get in contact with the authorities. That would be a 911 call. I would suggest not waiting or getting in contact with the non-emergency, but get in contact with the emergency services and let them know about it.
Thanks, Krystal. All right, other questions about this? Yeah, so it sounds like there's some follow-up training for folks who are interested in that. And Krystal, is this something, I also saw that you put your contact information up just at the end of the presentation. Would you mind just dropping your contact information in the chat? If people have follow-up questions or want some more information or where to get additional training, that might just be helpful if that's something you're interested in. People can always reach out to me too. Just in terms of like helping you get connected, who was that? I forgot to get her information. So I can always help with that. Are there questions right now? That was a lot, Krystal. You were right. That was
a lot.
That was a lot. Are there things that are on people's mind right now or comments to make? And I also want to just welcome Jane Prince, our city council member from Ward 7. Jane, always good to see you. Thanks for being on the show. And Jay Shong, Representative Jay Shong, was also on a little bit during the presentation, so he heard some of what we were talking about too, Krystal, which is great. Other questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes, Commander Hallstrom, welcome to the show.
Hello. I just want to give a shout out to Krystal. That was a very informative presentation. And I would also invite you to, if you wanted to, you could come to one of the evening community meetings here at the district and give it to other people. I'd love to have you. I've toured the facility. I can't remember if you were there or not, but great to have you in the East Side community, and thank you for your dedication to our youth. And don't hesitate to reach out if there's anything I can ever do to help out, or the Eastern District.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Commander Hallstrom. Fantastic.
That goes for me too, Krystal, from City Council. I'm so sorry I was late, but what I heard was terrific. In any way that I can help, I'll put my information in the chat too.
Wow. Thanks, Jane. I almost called you Commander Prince. I might just start calling you Commander Prince. That'd be fun.
I kind of like that.
Katie Matson Daly asks a question, and we're getting ready to wrap up, but this is a good one. It may, do you see it there, Krystal? So do you have any advice or thoughts about separating the truth of trafficking from the conspiracy theories around trafficking from QAnon stuff, say for instance, or about separating concerns about youth being exploited from adult sex workers? thoughts about those realms?
Well, I've heard of QAnon, and unfortunately, where I heard it from, I didn't pay much attention to it because, that was a previous administrator that brought that up. So I'm not familiar about what QAnon and how their thoughts are, or what the thought is in connection to sex trafficking from there. Do you have any advice or thoughts about separating truth? So I don't have much context on QAnon to be able to give you any information on that. Conspiracy theories about youth being exploited from. So one thing to keep in mind is that someone who becomes an adult sex worker is usually going to have some type of experience as in their youth life of being sexually abused, exploited, or trafficked. So becoming an adult sex worker, they probably still have a trafficker who is working with them. They may be considered, excuse my language, but this is how they're usually referred to. The adult sex worker is probably considered the bottom bitch, which is someone, she's at the lower rung of the ladder if you think about it. That's why she's at the bottom, but she's the one that's closest to the trafficker. She is usually going to be the one who brings in new girls, who trains them in. She's not going to do as much street work, or she's not going to do as much public sex work. She is usually going to go into the adult sex world because she can have a little bit more control of that. But again, adult sex workers were victims of exploitation and trafficking also. They just kind of, adult sex work has become more glorified, and so for them, they can get into it. You may have some adult sex workers who have not experienced trafficking, but has had some sexual abuse. And that is one of the ways that they unfortunately take control of the abuse and experiences they have had through it by reenacting it out and being in charge.
Wow, Krystal. Heavy. And more complicated. I think that's the other thing that, part of the mythos that I think Katie is peeling back for me right now is like, this is a whole world that I think I haven't thought a whole lot about. Complicated and tricky with a lot of points of, with a lot of platforms engaged.
Yeah.
So yeah, it sounds like some of and I'm just looking to see if there are any other questions in the chat or anybody else who wants to ask a question. It sounds like one of the things we need to do is know where good resources are, and maybe start getting more familiar with when we make a call and what that call is. A lot of us, I don't know, personally, like not comfortable making a call, like to the non-emergency number, feel like I'm impinging on the police. I think we need to kind of start getting over that when we see something that we think is not okay, or is just wow, that didn't look quite right. Or if somebody approached and said, hey, you looking for something? What are you here for? That's often somebody who's trying to sell me drugs, but maybe that's not, like maybe that's something else going on. And I should, instead of just saying, no, thank you, not today, I'm high on life, I should figure out something else more responsible to do with that information. And that's partly what you're helping me see, Krystal, that there's a whole web here that may be hurting a child that I need to be feeling a little more at the edge of my seat about.
I would like to say, just a final thought, that exploitation and trafficking is one of the most secretive worlds that has the most public consequences. Because if you think, there's a lot of survival things that those who are exploited do in order to survive, that they usually are caught on, but those things are stemming from exploitation and trafficking.
That is a profound ending for our time, and also a provocative one for us to consider and think about. One of the most secretive worlds that has the most public consequences. That leaves me with a lot to consider. I just want to thank everyone for being a part of this hour. There is more to say and more to do. And Krystal, there's clearly more conversation and more opportunity to network and connect. So one of the things ESABA is going to be doing is moving us out into the world where we can actually interact with the sunlight and each other. Oh, I know, it's kind of crazy. Our mayor has ended the mask mandate. And so I'm feeling like we should start stepping out in some tentative ways. At the current moment, we've got our Eastside Connect plan for next week. I'm going to see kind of how this setting up the topic goes. So be watching. You know, you may get an invite for next week. That's the plan. And also be watching for some invites to come out and connect with each other in person. We're going to do some patios. We're going to do some outside opportunities and see who's up for it yet. You know, how many people, you know, are up for it, you know, deep down in their psyche and really want to see other people right now? Right, kind of, yeah, okay. And then there's the like, can I actually get myself to do it? I'm not sure. I'm feeling that risk and kind of getting, anyway. So we've got some barriers to get over, but we're going to be working on just pulling you together. ESABA is also planning a bigger risk for July, an annual meeting get-together afternoon at the Phelan Park Pavilion. So a chance for all of you members and non-members, friends and hangers-on to come have a burger or a hot dog or a veggie burger or hot dog and see each other a little further down the road in July. So that's coming. Hey, Eastside Elders has an announcement. Krystal's ready to start seeing some of us out there in the real world. Rebecca Nelson says, hey, order your chicken wings now for our fundraiser. That's on ESABA's calendar, but Rebecca, go ahead and drop a link in if you want to. Pick up the chat if you want anybody, and otherwise just want to say thank you so much for being on today. Thank you so much, Krystal. What a kind of wonderful contribution to our community you are making, and excited to see you all in the virtual and in the real world soon. We're signing off. Thanks, everyone. Have a great Thursday. All right, Krystal.